You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn connects you with experts from all over the world to help you take charge of your career, your business, and your life. Rap along with us. Visit drjacalyn.com to learn how to become a guest or a sponsor. And now, the doctor is in.
Hello and welcome, or hopefully it's welcome back to USA Global TV and Business Talk Radio. You are watching the Business Talk Show. I'm your host, executive producer, director, and broadcast engineer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. And with me today, as always, in the house, the legendary Mr. Cini. How are you, sir?
Legendary. I like legendary. I'm fine. Thank you, Dr. Jacalyn. How are you?
I'm doing very well. You know, I was really excited about this show because of our guest, and also because it'll be a year that we've been doing this show, Al, and me together.
And I have a question for you before we bring out our guest, and it's along the lines of our interview today. How would you characterize our relationship?
Ooh. Well, I think it's very interesting because we met in a parking lot of a television station, and I was asking you about investing in real estate. And do you remember that?
I remember that. I think I ran for the hills, if I'm not mistaken. But
you're like, I'm not interested right now, but thanks for asking. And then we actually were able to do a TV show together, a morning coffee show. And I learned so much about you. And then we became friends and started doing the show together. I would say that we have a very good relationship. I don't know as much about you as I'd like, but that keeps it interesting.
It's because I'm in the witness protection program. But I
did see your picture in the post office wall, but you had a mask on.
Undisclosed location. But the reason why I asked is because I know in a minute or two we're going to be bringing out Rachel DeAlto. And before the program, I had a chance to talk with her a little bit about relationships and how most people feel as though they're about being with somebody. But the really best relationships are when you're building something with somebody. And I think if I were characterizing our relationship, it's the build that we've worked on together. I mean, you've done most of the lifting and you've done a great job, but it's fun to work with somebody when there's a goal in mind and you're all contributing to it in some way. And, I think that's a great basis for a relationship.
I think so too. And together, we have built this platform that enables people to come forward from all over the world now and share their stories. And I'm just so moved, people come from South Africa, all over the world, and sharing what it is that they're doing. So I thank you for all of your help and all of your wisdom and experience that you shared with me.
And Rachel's joining us from New Jersey. So this is an easy lift.
I know, amazing. Rachel's story is so incredible. She's a media personality. She actually started out in advertising and became a lawyer. And she's a TEDx speaker. She's been on several reality TV shows. She's got a book coming out. And she really helps people as a coach with their relationships. So let's not wait any longer to bring out Rachel DeAlto. Hi, Rachel.
Hey there. How you guys doing?
Rachel.
So good to see you. I said to you backstage that I feel like I've already met you in person because watching, your speaker reel, your TEDx talks, your work on TV, you've just accomplished so much. You were just on Clubhouse on the stage and Breakfast of Champions. How do you do it all, Rachel?
I'm tired all the time. Which is an honest answer. I'm a really big fan of staying busy and motivated. And I don't know, I feel like I figured out my purpose, a little under a decade ago. And after that, it's just been pretty much just nonstop. And I take naps.
Thank you for being real about that. One thing I want to share with our audience is one of your TEDx talks. I think it was in wasn't Syracuse. I forget. It'll come to me. it was so amazing because you came out, you're in this beautiful dress, and you start telling the story about your perfect life. And then, you asked the audience if they wanted to hear the true story. And I don't know if people were raising their hands or whatever, but you said, how many of you were resenting me when I was telling you this perfect story? And I was thinking to myself while you were telling it, I was like, wow, that's a little, but we do it all the time. Yeah, but we do it all the time. And that was your point, is that we're not authentic. We're putting ourselves out there in a way that's really deceitful because we're not telling the whole story for many reasons. So my first question to you is, in the dating world, for example, or in the business world, how authentic should you be? And I'll give you an example. Let's say I have a profile on a dating site, which I don't, and I put 58, ulcerative colitis, facial eczema, and scalp psoriasis. Do you want to date me?
So we want to have a balance. I think in any case where we are, promoting ourselves or pseudo selling ourselves, if it's in a business situation and professionally you're trying to, promote yourself, you're going to want to put yourself in the best light. It just has to be an accurate light, and sometimes less is more. So in that case, I think it's good let's go with your strengths. Let's go with, being honest and accurate, but focusing on the good. It doesn't mean, though, when you're in a relationship that you should hide the bad things, obviously down the road, and everything has to be offered up in, connection with the ratio of connectedness. And so as time goes along, then you become more and more honest and open. And then you do share some of those things that aren't as pretty and aren't as positive. And that's okay.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for clarifying that, because I think
my name is Cini. I have leprosy, halitosis, and body odor, and I'd like to jump in with a question. It's terrible. A lot of people think that a relationship is something you sell into or get something from, and you can almost tell immediately when somebody is trying to get something out of you, can't you?
Yes. Yeah.
What does that do to a relationship? How good an impression is that to make right out of the box?
Yeah, I think that's honestly part of the reason why I've been so focused on relationship building for the last decade, is because you have these situations where, and of course my dog just walks in. This is the beauty of work from home. Hi, puppy. Great out. But you have these situations where you can feel it, and there is, in terms of communication and connectivity to someone, there's definitely an energy that's attached to it, and the intention that people have when they're entering into those conversations and the way that they position themselves absolutely comes out in how you feel from them. And so it's really just important to be as earnest as possible. I had one I remember I did this one audition for something my agent sent to me for TV. They were like, gosh, she's so earnest, as if it was a bad thing. And I just laughed because I was like, yeah, and that's probably not going to change. So, showing up in relationships in that way allows people to feel like you're being real and you're not trying to get something from someone. And I think that's the fallacy of relationships. Like you said, it's not that you're trying to get something from someone, or you're not trying to be something to someone. I'm trying to be in relationship to you. I'm trying to relate to you. That's why I wrote a book called Relatable. I want people to be able to relate to one another, because I believe that it's through those relationships that we grow the most, that we learn the most, that we're as successful as we can be, because we are in relationship to them, as opposed to what can I get from you. And I get those messages all the time where people are asking for things off the bat, and even if they're not directly asking, it's thinly veiled, and it just doesn't feel good, and that. So it's the approach is everything.
It's I love that word earnest, because it's different from honest.
Yeah.
So how is that different for you, by the way? I mean, why does that word resonate with you?
I think it almost sounds boring. And I like that, because it's like, it's not trying to be flashy. It's real. Like, earnest to me is just something so it's innately you, and it's something that resonates from that kind of deeper level than trying to be pretending to be something that you're not.
And speaking about pretending to be something that you're not, I've encountered this when I was in my corporate career, and not so much now because in the pandemic in the house, but you see somebody one way at work, and then they're a different way outside of work. It's almost like they put on another costume or something. And it's like, I've had conversations with people like, I don't really know if I can trust you because I don't know who you are. Are you that person? Or are you this person? So should you have a second personality when it comes to work?
So, it's funny because I had this conversation recently where people talking about be authentic, be yourself. And the fact of the matter is that, yes, absolutely. The answer is you should be authentic. You should be yourself. But we are going to have different facets of us. So when someone says be yourself, the self of me that shows up at a dinner party with my friends is going to be very different than the self that was in a courtroom, litigating something. But they were both me. These are versions of me. So I think you are going to have different versions of yourself. There's going to be different elements of your personality that comes out stronger in different situations. And I hope for the HR department's sake that you show up differently on a date than you do in a corporate setting. So absolutely, but have them all be resonating with who you actually are. So that's kind of, I think the caveat there is, yes, show up differently, but make them different versions of you. And that kind of makes us sound like we're becoming schizophrenic and multiple personalities, but it's not the case. We just really do, as you both know, I'm sure, have different facets of ourselves. And that doesn't make you less authentic. It just allows you to show those different sides.
Thank you.
Your law degree. You used to be a lawyer.
Yes, I did. They haven't disbarred me, so I guess I still am. But
you still are an attorney. How does your experience as a lawyer feed what you're doing these days?
Oh my gosh, it's so funny because people are like, how, exactly, but they ask it in a definitely more accusatory tone where, how do you work that into it? And the fact is, I was a really good mediator. I was in litigation, but I was a really good mediator, and I could see things. And this is something that I'm still capable of doing, I think, which made me a good lawyer, is I can see things from a bunch of different perspectives. And so I look at the same situation in relationships or challenges, or you go into a team setting and you're like, okay, how do I look at this from a bird's eye view from everybody's different perspectives, and then get them to come together? Because that's what mediation is. Mediation is not everybody's going to leave happy. In fact, if you're a good mediator, most people leave upset, but they leave resolved. And then they're able to move on because they have now resolved their biggest challenge. And that's the same thing with relationships, where if you're in a contentious situation, you need to be able to come to a middle ground where maybe everybody doesn't get what they want. Maybe they have to compromise a lot, but it's resolved.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Good point. We are going to take a break and hear from some of our sponsors, so don't go away. We've got a lot more conversation to have with Rachel. By the way, we did get that comment, and I put it up there. I don't know who this is from because they're in a private group on Facebook, but if you want us to say your name, just go ahead and type it so Rachel knows that you're out there.
Facebook,
I need to know my sister.
Facebook has a protection program too.
They certainly do. Yeah, if you're in a private group, you have to give StreamYard permission to use your name. So
to use your name.
It's all good. All right, here we go. Okay. Is it Kim Seltzer?
Yeah.
Kimmy Seltzer. There
Kimmy
you go.
Seltzer. Oh, she put her name. All right. Beautiful.
Thanks, Kimmy.
Kim and I have a show later on today called In the Name of Love. So
I love it.
Stay tuned for that. All right, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back after these messages. Thank you.
Hey everybody, my name is Ralph Graves Jr. I'm the host of the Ralph Graves Jr. Show, and I want to invite you to pick up my book, Unstoppable. I wrote a book called Unstoppable. It's 7 universal laws that will transform how you pursue and achieve success. The one thing that my 20 years of law enforcement has taught me is that no matter who you are, we are all governed by universal laws, like gravity. But in this book, we're going to talk about laws like the law of forgiveness, laws like the law of control, the law of intelligent practice, the law of expectancy. I was able to see how those, no matter what their background was, those who identified and treated these laws with respect, they were able to go on and lead successful lives. So pick up this book, and you can go ahead and pick it up at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, RalphGravesJr.com, where anywhere where fine books are sold. Thank you.
There are 7.7 billion people on Earth today. 40% of these people are under the age of 25. Young adults are the most fertile mission field in the world today. In Scripture, we see Jesus pouring his life into 12 young adults who he equipped to change the world and all of history. Like Jesus, we believe that the best approach to reach the world with the gospel is to invest in young, emerging leaders and equip them to build disciple-making movements. Concentric is the notion of surrounding and sharing a common center. Our center is the model and strategy of Jesus for both leadership development and ministry formation. As a global alliance, we provide equipping in biblical leadership based on Jesus' example in the New Testament. Jesus modeled for us how to make disciples that reproduce. Focusing on leadership development is key to creating movements that spread the gospel and Jesus' disciple-making strategy to young leaders around the globe. Our Ministry Alliance partners are actively equipping leaders and building movements of multiplication that reproduce the life of Christ. Join us today to equip young leaders with Jesus' strategy that will change cities and nations.
The session that we had with BCAT was really entertaining and enlightening. We were able to put together some very specific steps that we as individuals can take, and it was really fun to all come together and see sort of where we're going as a team and how we can all get there together.
We had a tremendous experience with the BCAT partners. One of the challenges that we have as an organization is to make sure that we have the right people in the right chairs doing the right thing. To do that well, you have to have synergy. You can try to dream up ways to make sure that your group does that, or you can rely on experts. We would recommend BCAT partners to anybody who's looking to take their organization to the next level.
Academy Sedan and Limo is a full-service transportation company serving the Philadelphia metropolitan area with full knowledge of the New York City, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. areas. We pride ourselves on being the most dependable, conscientious company in the industry. Our always on-time service and dependable pricing make us the company to call for any event or occasion. Our vehicles can accommodate any size party for any occasion. Our vehicles range from four-door sedans to SUVs to minivans to limo buses to full-size tour buses and can accommodate groups of 2 to 100. We offer airport shuttle service or over-the-road service without limitation regarding mileage or time, and no drive is too long or too far. So if you find yourself in need of transportation of any type with any vehicle, give us a call at 610-842-4564 and let us show you what a real transportation company can do for you.
Use code ACADEMY2020 to receive 20% off your first 3 rides, including parking and tolls.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Welcome back to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn. My name is Cini, and you are Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I am. And our guest is Rachel DeAlto, who is legendary. She's been all over television and stages, just sharing her experiences in life, helping people every single day. So Rachel, thank you again for being here.
And she has successfully completed more education at more schools than I actually dropped out of, which is amazing. So she's got quite a storied background. Rachel, in the first segment, we got to explore your expertise in the subject of relationships, and everybody's mind, I think, automatically goes to one-on-one relationships and dating situations, that kind of thing. But the truth is, a lot of the work you do with corporations and teams. Isn't that true?
It is, yes. And it's such an interesting thing because I started off, and I'm still very involved in certain elements of personal and romantic relationships. I'm Match's chief dating expert, so I still have that experience, but started to shift really kind of incorporating all of that education. The master's in psychology isn't up there yet. Didn't get the actual paper mounted, but I realized that whether we're talking about a personal, professional, romantic relationship, a lot of the challenges are basically rooted in the same vein. They're the same foundational challenges, the same issues. And so I wanted to really be able to reach more people, which is why I started with the book, because it could fit in all of those different elements. And then I was telling you before we started the show, I actually just created an assessment on relatability because corporations are where, people who are in corporate America, we spend the majority of our days at work. And whether at work is now at home at work or it's at work physically, those people that we're working with are people who we're having the most relationships with, and they can have an enormous impact. And, whether we're talking about employee engagement or performance or efficiency or retention, a lot of those issues all come down to relationships. So that's where everything started to shift in terms of a lot of my focus in my private practice.
And relatable, you mentioned you have a relatable assessment that you offer for free, I think, right?
I have a social superpowers quiz that is for free. And then I have an assessment it's a paid assessment that's being launched in mostly in team corporate settings right now. But yes, on my website, there is a social superpowers quiz. So you can find out what your superpower is, because I think you can't show up as yourself if you don't, know who you are. And some people are like, wait, I could use some guidance on that. So trying to help people identify what are my strengths, what are the areas that I really excel at.
Great.
And Rachel, I know you're a certified coach and also in meditation and hypnotherapy. And one of your TED Talks was about fear. And the example that you gave was of spiders. And I could relate because I'm also afraid of spiders. But so what I'm wondering is, what advice, direction can you give to our audience? Fear can keep you from having a deep level relationship, whether it's in work or whether it's even meeting somebody or taking your relationship to the next level. So how can people learn to mitigate or prevent fear?
Well, I think the one thing to recognize is that fear is not going to go away entirely. I think there is a healthy level of fear. It's what keeps us from doing really, really dumb things. So we want to keep that level of fear, but we also want to recognize that where is that fear coming from? Because typically, regardless of the situation of the type of relationship you're looking at, typically that fear is of rejection. And that can happen in corporate America just as easily as it can happen on Match. And so you have to recognize where the fear is coming from, and then be able to push yourself in a way that not only increases your confidence. So you want to really push your boundaries in that area and really work on, how do I feel more comfortable in myself so that if I do have a rejection moment, it doesn't impact me in a way that really takes me away from what I'm looking to do, but also to do it anyway. And that's really how we get through fear. We have to trick our brain enough to do it so that there's some sort of positive reinforcement so that we're able to take those next steps. And I'm always a big fan of baby steps. I know some people are like, jump out of a plane, which I've done. But I really do think that when we're working with the brain and we're working with how we're going to best look at long-term results when it comes to fear, baby steps work. And then allowing your brain to recognize, okay, this isn't an imminent threat anymore. Now I can take the next step and then the next step, as opposed to pushing people, into the pool.
That, in the corporate world, that is so important, because I think we compete with each other by scaring each other. And when we frighten each other, we suppress all the great ideas that could really make a difference for everybody, which means the meetings are boring and dull and they don't result in anything that makes any progress. And the best contributions are suppressed.
Yeah, that's a huge problem. And honestly, we could go into a whole other element too about, the typical social standards of men and women, where in group think, and in group situations, a lot of times women have, we have societal standards and we have social roles psychologically that we've adopted that suppress how we talk. and suppress our contributions. And then if there is any sort of rejection to it, especially in that open environment, we've all been there. I'm assuming we've all been there. Anybody who's ever been in a corporate America setting, you've been in a situation in a boardroom, you're sitting with a bunch of people who you respect or who could be above you on the hierarchy of your corporate ladder. And then you say something and there's a shame attachment to it because they reject it. And then you have all of those feelings of shame and rejection, and you're questioning your intelligence and you're questioning your contribution, so that it is repressed. And then all of those social roles are endorsed. And so it becomes a challenge in terms of how do you foster an environment where people feel creative and they feel supported enough to make a comment and not have it be completely, degraded.
Great point. I remember many times in my corporate career that I would wait to say something because certain people like talking all the time. And then I'd finally say something and nobody would make a comment. I'd be like, oh, so stupid. I shouldn't have said anything. And then that really changed my behavior, that I really didn't say anything anymore.
Yeah, you start to adapt to that. And that who are we serving with that? All we're doing is then amplifying the same voices. And, diversity of voices creates a colorful environment and creates creativity and creates problem solving. And I think about this story, one of my favorite stories, and this isn't from mine, this is actually from a TEDx speaker, Selena, who spoke with me at the Hartford event. She talks about diversity in the workplace, and she talked about how when the seatbelts were first created, they only tested them on the bodies of men, like the shapes of men and sizes. So when seatbelts were implemented, it did nothing to protect women. And it talks about like the seats at the table. It's not about gender. It's not about race. It's about just diversity of opinion, diversity and creativity, and allowing people to feel like they can have a voice is so important in terms of your team.
So helping corporations encourage, I'm going to say encourage, actually helping corporations bring out the courage in their people so that they say what they think without fear of being judged. That's what you do. Is that right?
It's definitely an element. I mean, part of what I talk about, when I work with a corporation, it's really about how do we get them to relate better. So I'll bring up their social superpowers, help people connect with people who have different styles. Everybody knows at this point, I think most people know the love languages. Everybody has a different love language, right? And we speak a certain language. So Gary Chapman, for those who don't know, wrote this book that's been enormously popular called The 5 Love Languages. And sometimes we speak a different language than we receive. And if we're receiving a language that doesn't connect with ours, we absolutely don't feel the same way. Our love bucket isn't as filled. Well, the same thing happens in corporate America and in every relationship otherwise. If we act a certain way and we speak a certain way and we relate a certain way, and if that doesn't connect with another person because they have a different superpower, then all of a sudden there's such a disconnect in communication. And what do they say is, the basis of every relationship, I don't care if it's romantic or corporate, is communication. So a lot of what I do is really helping people communicate better. And part of that is being more accepting, reducing shame, allowing for creativity, allowing for mistakes, allowing for acknowledgement that people don't know everything. That's such a challenge in so many situations where people are afraid to acknowledge what they know and what they don't know. But I know, and I'm sure you do too, that the more that you can embrace what you do know and recognize what you don't know, the farther that you go.
Yes, definitely. Rachel, I want to try to pull things together in terms of the topics that we are talking about. So fear, communication, and acceptance, and this pandemic. So where am I going with this? People have been in isolation and they're afraid to go out. They're afraid to reconnect with somebody, but yet they need that. They need that one-on-one. What direction or how could you encourage people to get out of where you've been in here and in here to be able to go back into the workplace or back into the dating world or back into connecting with other people?
Yes, this is something I'm super passionate about. One, I think we have to recognize the fact that social anxiety and challenges connecting lasted or existed way before COVID hit. And now, because of what we've experienced in the last month and a half, it's become just so much more prevalent. It's continually growing. So when you are re-entering a situation that you may be a little rusty at, which we have been, sometimes it's something that takes a lot of practice for people, for an introverted person, for someone that does have some sort of measure of social anxiety, it can be very difficult. So I think the first thing is to have grace and give yourself grace and be patient with yourself and understanding of yourself. The second is to make sure that you maintain perspective of other people. So maybe you aren't the one who has a challenge, or maybe you aren't the one who's feeling anxious, but maybe the person that you're talking to is. And understanding that is so important. That empathy, that emotional intelligence aspect of it is just essential. And then just putting yourself into those positions where you can, again, take those baby steps, because you need to, some people are okay. I think back to, when I was learning to swim, my parents signed me up for this swim class where they literally threw you in as a 2-3-year-old and just let you try to figure it out on your own for a minute. And I'm still terrified by that. I still drive past that swim school and think, oh my gosh, I was traumatized there. And some people can handle it. There were people that loved it. I've talked to people in their area that absolutely, they just praise the name. And for me, that didn't work. And I think for a lot of people, it doesn't work to just be thrown into the pool. So take the steps that you need, take it slowly. It doesn't have to be overwhelming at first, and allow yourself to build up and feel more comfortable. It's kind of like going to the gym. You haven't gone to the gym for a while. It's going to hurt. Like, your muscles will be sore. And then you can go again and again until all of a sudden it feels a little bit easier.
Great advice. Thank you. I just wanted to say, I just joined the gym a couple of weeks ago after not going for over a year, and I can hardly walk.
Everything hurts, and it's totally normal. And so it might hurt. I mean, I hope it doesn't hurt to socialize again, but it's going to feel a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, Rachel, one of the points you're making, I think, is an important point, and that's the option to withdraw is always there. And that's the only avenue that will not work for you reliably, no matter who you are. So having the courage to re-engage, even after you make some adjustments, don't run away, get back in there, change, learn, adapt, and then get back in. I think that's such an important message.
Yes. And honestly, take everything as a learning experience. And, and understand that if there was a feeling of uncomfortableness, or going back to the boardroom where you felt shame or embarrassment, there's a lesson there of how do I grow within myself so that doesn't happen again. I can't control their reactions. I can control mine. And how can I grow? I think at the end of the day, we are all evolving. If you have done growing and evolving, then we need to talk. So I think everything is a point for self-reflection, and there's just so much room for growth.
Well done. Well said. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back for the last segment of our program. So stay with us here. We're actually going to watch a music video. I love this. It's produced by Licorice Dragon Records, and the name of the artist is ILO, I-L-O. She's over in the UK. She's performed here in Nashville, and you can purchase her song Heroes in Disguise over on iTunes. We'll be right back.
Picture this, a life where you can leave your pain, a life where you can start again somehow. Picture this, a vision that can change a prayer, happy heart that's always there in the now. So don't be afraid of fear, even though as long as we're still here, we can be anything larger than life, rise up from the ground. We can fall down over 10,000 times, to this, losing everything you got, never having had a lot, but holding on and on and on. Don't be afraid to dream, 'cause we are so much closer than it seems. We can be anything larger than life, rise up from the ground. We can fall down over 10,000 times, then turn it all right back around. We never imagined how good life can be, but inside you and me, we can see past these ghosts in the mirror. We can be anything larger than life, rise up from the ground. We can fall down over 10,000 times, then turn it all right back around. We never imagined how good life can be, but inside you and me, we can see past these ghosts in the mirror. Heroes in disguise. Heroes in disguise. Heroes in disguise. Heroes in disguise. Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is, the most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Welcome back, everybody, to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn. My name is Cini, and I love co-hosting the Business Talk Show with Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. It's always a pleasure, but especially when we have a guest like Rachel DeAlto. And Rachel, I know we're coming close to the end of the program, and I want to make sure we connect you with the people in our audience that need your help. So who is it you typically hear from at a company? Why do they call you, and what's an engagement with you like?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. So pre-assessment, typically my engagements were all keynote speeches. So I would be called by the person who was in charge of creating that for the company. It could be the HR, it could be the CEO, or someone associated with an association, so meeting planners, and they would bring me in to do a speech. I've done primarily, my focus has been keynote speaking, and now as things are starting to shift into the assessment, I'm doing a lot more of working with teams. So different departments within organizations will call me, and we're now in the process of setting up, getting the assessments done and working through some teams throughout a basis. Because I'm definitely, I like to see what the results are. So an engagement could look like someone brings me in to work with their team. Everybody does the assessment. I come in and work with them for typically, 2-3 hours. And then we redo the assessment and do that 3 months or 6 months later and assess the changes and have some support in between. So that's the typical program now.
Great.
Thanks for sharing that. Rachel, I want our audience to know all about this book that you have coming out, and they can pre-order today on your website. It's on Amazon. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yes. So Relatable, How to Connect with Anyone, Anywhere, Even if It Scares You, is my book, publishing with Simon & Schuster's Tiller Press, and comes out September 7th, but it is available for pre-order and people can become a part of my launch team, which is awesome. We got some fun stuff going on over there. And really my intention is just to help people build connection. Connecting is something that we desire in every aspect of your life, and it's just an important element. So I am passionate about helping people build those relationships in a way that I find to be the most real and the most long-standing, because it's one thing to have acquaintances. And one of my, the quotes that I butcher my own quote, by the way, but I use this in my TEDx as well in my book, where, we can, those large networks of shallow depth feed our ego, but those deep, authentic connections feed our soul.
I love that. Rachel, for people who are listening on Business Talk Radio and they can't read the banner, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
I am Rachel DeAlto everywhere. So if you're connecting on any social platform, that's where I am. And my website is racheldealto.com. I try to stay consistent.
I love it. And for those who can't see, her name is RachelDealto, Rachel DeAlto. And she's also over on Clubhouse, Breakfast of Champions. You can find her there on the stage sometimes. I know you're not there every day, right? Because you have things to do.
I can't. I try, my gosh. In January, when I had nowhere to go and nothing to do, I was like, I'm going to hang out and on Clubhouse all day, every day. And then I'm like, that's not helping getting things done.
Very true. One thing I want to say before we close out, I feel like Clubhouse has enabled people to express themselves authentically. I'm not saying everyone, but you're in a room and before you know it, you're talking about things. It's like, whoa, did I just say that actually? This is crazy.
Yes, it definitely has been a super connector. I've been very happy with that. So, and then to take those relationships offline has been amazing. So it's honestly become my favorite social platform.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. You're right. And it's been such a gift having you here today. Thank you for sharing this time with us. I know you have a busy schedule, but we've just loved having you here. And I see some people just joined us on social media. You can go over to our YouTube channel, USA Global TV, and you can watch Rachel from the beginning of the show until now, right over there.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Take care of yourself.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. She's such a great guest, right?
She's a terrific guest with a lot of extensive background, including a whole lot of education behind everything she says and does. So I can't think of a person better equipped to help a company solve its internal relationship problems and build stronger, healthier communications and promote fearless innovation, which every company should be striving to do.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Rachel. It was a pleasure. Al, before we go, I'm going to spotlight you. Can you tell us about the work you're doing over at BCAT and what you're doing at BCAT?
Sure. BCAT stands for Brand and Culture Alignment Toolkit, and it's a methodology for connecting people in an organization with the organization's core purpose. And we've been pretty busy lately. I think in a way, there's a wave breaking, and the wave that's breaking is that companies are trying to be reconnected to what really matters and why their corporations were formed. And BCAT is the boogie board. If you want to ride that wave rather than get buried under it, I think we have the tool for that. And it's fun and rewarding work, and we get great outcomes from it. So thanks for the opportunity to share that, Dr. Jacalyn. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Al. And I know you have a newsletter that's coming out. How can people get on your email list?
Easiest way to do that is to visit getbcat.com. There's a contact us button kind of prominently featured at the top of the website. Click on that, fill out the form, we'll add you to the newsletter.
Wonderful. And Al, I'm just wondering, how are you feeling about reacclimating in the world? Do you, I know I still have, I don't want to use the word fear, but some trepidations about, I just go into the gym, which is not a big deal, but to go to a big event or something, what are your thoughts about it? How do you feel?
Well, yeah, I think I'm ready. I mean, I'm good to go. I've been vaccinated, so I feel as though I'm safe to get out there. I can't guarantee I won't catch something, but I feel pretty good that if I do, I'll be okay. I think everybody's trying to grapple with this in their own way, and I really hate to judge other people. That's kind of a core feature of me. And people who have fears, I think, should consider those fears. And I think what we ultimately all have to do for each of us is to find a comfortable way through this aspect of our lives in the middle of this situation we're in. And at the same time, we have to avoid judging each other for the choices that they make, because it's not about doing things the way you want them done or the way I want them done. It's about doing things sensibly and intelligently based on the information you have, and using the gift of free will with some sense of responsibility. So I feel good about it. A lot of people don't. I understand that.
Thanks for sharing that and for your transparency. I'm wondering, how has doing business during the pandemic changed for you, if at all?
Actually, two benefits in a kind of a strange way. One is that Zoom is, everybody knows how to use it now. I mean, part of the problem with the remote mobilized workforce in the past was that an awful lot of people who wanted to work from home just didn't know how to use the tools. Well, now everybody knows how to use them. So we've converted everybody into a kind of a social media warrior without intending to. So the skill sets are there in everybody now. We can meet comfortably online in ways that were never possible before. And the second is, I think what we're realizing is that COVID didn't hurt us by disconnecting us from each other as much as it hurt us by disconnecting us from our purpose. And reconnecting with purpose is what we do with the Brand and Culture Alignment Toolkit. And so in a way, it's been, I don't want to say good for us, because I wish it had never happened, but it's waking people up to the whole idea that employees want more from their lives at work than just a paycheck. They want a deep feeling of meaning in the work they do. And I don't care what the nature of the work is, whether it's driving a truck or skimming a pool, whatever it is you do. If you love your work, then it's the meaning of work that you're connected with. And people are insisting on getting that. I think employers have to listen to that and provide it.
I love it. Yeah. I think for me, it's having, I don't want to say the word access, but access to the world. In other words, hearing from people all around the world, I never would have had an opportunity to meet, and countries that I have never been to, and people sharing about the culture and what life is like for them. So I feel like it's been a growth opportunity in that regard.
That, I've watched the programs. I've watched your repertoire of programs grow, and you do have an awful lot of people visiting you from all over the world, Dr. Jacalyn. And, in a way, you're kind of riding that wave we talked about, where now all of a sudden we are connected with each other, no matter where we are physically. And I think that's amazing. Good work, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you for all your help in making it happen. And it's been another great show. And as you know, we're booked out through the end of December now, I think.
Yeah, a lot of people have a lot of great stories to share. And this is always a fun interview for me. Great to meet people like Rachel, and all the guests are great. And it's always a pleasure working with you, Doc.
Thanks. It's a pleasure working with you as well. And that's a wrap for us today. Do come back and see us next Wednesday at the same time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. British Summer Time. Take care. Bye.